So hello everyone, my name is Ammon Reagan and I'm the BESO Program Coordinator for the City of Berkeley. And so along with the other cities, I'll be talking about our benchmarking ordinance and the additional requirements we have for our existing buildings. So Berkeley, along with other cities, is committed to combating climate change, aiming to reduce emissions while mitigating the impact and focusing on multi-benefit solutions. We need resilient buildings that have clean and good indoor air quality, good insulation from extreme heat, renewable heating, energy efficient, and so on. And we have a goal to be zero net emissions by 2050. Another goal of ours is to provide clean and renewable electricity. And with the help of East Bay Community Energy, our local CCA, we are continuing to decrease our emissions from grid electricity. Also, Berkeley is committed to being a fossil fuel-free city. And with clean electricity, we know that eliminating fossil fuels is the only way to meet our goal. And so how do we get to zero emissions? So far, since 2000, we've decreased our emissions 26%, but still 38% of our emissions come from our existing buildings, with the majority of those coming from natural gas. And the BESO program is one of many tools that we are using to decrease emissions from the building sector. So a little overview of Berkeley's existing building stock. It's pretty old, with most buildings built in the 1920s, and over 60% of our total square footage is single family homes. And so if we are to continue to decrease emissions from our building sector, we needed a policy that could accommodate Berkeley's range of buildings. And Berkeley has a long history with energy efficiency. In 1987, we adopted RECO, so the Residential Energy Conservation Ordinance, which required homes to complete 11 minimal energy efficiency measures at time of sale or transfer. A few years later, in 1993, we had SECO, which brought commercial buildings into the mix and then required commercial buildings to meet minimal energy efficiency measures at time of sale or transfer. A few decades later, in 2009, Berkeley adopted the Climate Action Plan, aiming to reduce building sector emissions 30% by 2020 and 80% by 2050. With the current requirements under RECO and SECO, we weren't seeing the uptake or impact on our emissions that we needed. And RECO and SECO were both very prescriptive, and one size doesn't always fit all. And almost 30 years with RECO, once a building had complied, they didn't need to comply again. And so we needed a new policy to meet our goals. And so that led to the creation of BESO in 2015. And so this was influenced in part by San Francisco, since we saw the value of data and you can't manage what you don't measure. And we ended the RECO and SECO program and combined the two and created one program under the Building Energy Savings Ordinance, moving from prescriptive measures to custom energy assessments with both a labeling and a benchmarking component. And so I'll go into that a little bit. So BESO covers all buildings and has different requirements for different building types. So for our large buildings, we require an assessment every 5 years, and this was largely modeled after San Francisco's ordinance. And we also have a benchmarking component for buildings greater than 25,000 square feet. And so this is aligned with AB 802 as well. For buildings that are smaller than 25,000 square feet, but are not 1 to 4 unit homes, so this be small residential, small commercial, we require an assessment every 10 years. And then last is our 1 to 4 unit home category, which once again is over 60% of our citywide square footage. So for our 1 to 4 unit homes, we require assessments at time of sale and the energy labeling plus disclosure. Since Barry will be speaking a bit more to the large building components, I'll be taking the time to go over our time of sale requirements with BESO. So because we had RECO, a time of sale requirement wasn't new to the city when we adopted BESO in 2015. We wanted to move from prescriptive measures with RECO to a labeling and disclosure program with the goal of being an on-ramp for the Bay Run rebate programs, provide additional information to potential buyers about the energy efficiency of their new home, and provide custom recommendations on how to upgrade one's home to save money and increase comfort. So we require an energy assessment at time of sale, but we also allow for deferrals since Berkeley's real estate market can move pretty fast and we didn't want to stop a potential sale. Berkeley sees about 500 to 600 home sales per year. And we haven't seen any negative impacts on the real estate market since. So for our single family homes, we require a home energy score. So this is a DOE program that rates buildings 1 to 10 based on a building's characteristics for energy efficiency. So similar to what Emily brought up earlier in today's forum, this is similar to a miles per gallon metric. And so higher is better, and 10 would be a very efficient building. And the home energy score report estimates home energy use, associated costs, and provides energy solutions to cost effectively improve a home's efficiency. And Stop Waste is our local program partner, and they help train assessors and manage the data collection for the program. And so we chose the home energy score program as our single family home time of sale disclosure because we had the local program partner Stop Waste. It has third-party review of all the assessments. It's also an easy and digestible score that we can communicate to potential buyers, and it's a national program. So since the ordinance went into effect in late 2015, we've had 1,757 homes scored with an average score of 4.3. And so scores in Berkeley are a bit below average since we are a mild climate and our buildings aren't built with good envelopes. They're leaky and not well insulated. And so through the Home Energy Score program, we've been able to collect valuable data on our residential building stock that's been able to feed into our citywide electrification strategy. When BESO passed in 2015, we included a requirement to evaluate the program within 3 years. We needed to see if the goals we had going into BESO were being met and what could we do to improve our process and outcomes. So we hired Energy Solutions as our third-party consultant, and over a 6-month period at the end of last year, we evaluated the program because we passed BESO in 2015, and we wanted to see what could we do to make sure we were getting the emissions reductions that we need to get our citywide goals. And so it's kind of the next part of this presentation will go over what are we planning to do to update BESO specifically for our single family home requirement. So from the evaluation, so some of the highlights, one was to expand goals to include electrification and resilience. So when BESO was created, it was more centered around energy efficiency, which will continue to be a goal of BESO. But now with our electricity getting cleaner and cleaner, it's imperative that we increase our focus on electrification. Next is to better leverage rebates and other incentives. So as more rebates and incentives are coming online for electrification, how can we align BESO with those? And are there any other funding sources we could tap into to help fund energy efficiency and electrification upgrades? And so the third kind of main highlight for the program was to increase upgrades and improve tracking. So BESO for all of our building sizes relies on voluntary uptake of the recommendations from the assessments. And as we update BESO, we need to consider how to increase improvements to our building stock. And so this summer and fall, we're planning to update BESO based on the recommendations from the evaluation so we can continue to use this program to decrease emissions from our building sector. And so to touch on the first bullet, we are wanting to align all of our assessments with electrification and electrification measures. And so for the home energy score, Stop Waste, our local program partner, is developing an electrification checklist as a supplement to the home energy score so assessors can collect more data on electrification readiness of a home. And this will allow us to promote all electric equipment as potential upgrades. Another one is to move to a time of listing for our ordinance, because currently it's a time of sale. And so the information isn't on the NLS system right now. And other programs that are home energy score require assessments to be completed before it's listed. We wanted to do this in the beginning, but when we created BESO, we didn't have the technology infrastructure in place. Thanks to Stop Waste, we now have a green building registry, so we can link our scores directly to the NLS system. We want potential buyers to be looking at the scores and reports as they're shopping for homes as a way to influence on how ready is their home for electrification, what potential upgrades will they need to do in the future. And then kind of the third big proposed update we're doing is mandatory requirements when homes are sold. So we know that there's a lot of rebates coming for all electric equipment, but a big barrier for electrification is readiness. And a voluntary program only gets us part of the way. And so having mandatory requirements will signal to homeowners that there's a cost for inaction and that investments around electrification will be an asset when selling their home. And so how this will potentially look and for developing these requirements, we're looking at a phased-in strategy, allowing us time to set up additional rebate programs and work with technical experts on what measures to include. Another is to pair it with a funding source. And so we're hoping to align requirements with potential rebates to offset the cost of some of these measures. And so we're exploring our current city transfer tax rebate program that can be used for seismic upgrades. And so we're seeing if we can include additional measures around electrification and energy efficiency and have that be one of the potential funding sources. And then third is having custom measures that, having these custom mandatory measures based off the energy assessment. And so homeowners would be able to pick from the list of the recommended measures and then would be required to implement one of them. So some key takeaways from that we learned from creating BESO, and if any of you are looking at creating a benchmarking program and want to include all of your buildings and more requirements, time of sale can be an important intervention point. And if you are wanting to create a time of sale ordinance, see your realtors as partners and understand what's important to them. Making a process that didn't disrupt the home sale was extremely important. We designed our program around, aligned with that. Because if realtors don't like it, they'll show it. And right now, realtors are our main outreach, and so they're the ones working with home sellers and home buyers. And so they're the ones communicating about the BESO ordinance. Another one is to include regular intervals to evaluate and update your ordinance. This has been helpful for us when we included that 3-year evaluation, and it allowed us to take a step back and see how we can best improve our program to meet our overall city goals. And then third would be having a comprehensive ordinance that covers all buildings. And so since BESO touches every building in the city, all 25,000 plus, it allows us to leverage BESO to decrease emissions from our entire building stock. And that's it for me. I'll pass it back.